episode 1 of Lefspek Connect. I'm really excited and happy tonight to have my friend Amy Pearl, aka Miss Butter, here in the studio.
I wrote this rhyme all about the times and years I went, weekends I spent in the after hours, dirty clubs as a way to shower, stare and scrub the grime from my body, night blue scans, pink cat basement, you only lose man, all night raving, living cat there, caving a road to fucking nowhere, and a B girl stands, I dance all night, afraid of tomorrow, nothing went right in my life, numbed up, so full of sorrow, got 10 bucks I could borrow, nobody should be watching what you buy.
This woman probably, I don't want to date us, but many, many years ago. And it was a different time and a different life. And we were, unified in our mutual love for hip hop. And I found that our friendship grew a lot over the years in just that appreciation. And just when you're an artist and you're creating, there's the general audience of your friends and family who, you say, yeah, that's great, that's whatever. But when you have another person who's an artist, especially who's creating in the same genre as you, the time you spend with them is super, super important. The feedback you get is important. And the feeling you get when you perform for another performer, for me, is it's kind of almost better than performing for a crowd, because you feel like they get you. So anyways, without further ado, I just want to welcome Amy. I'd like to welcome Miss Butter to Ascension Studio and my first podcast.
Thank you.
How you doing?
It's great to be here. The studio is such a beautiful space.
Awesome.
I love coming here because of all those years where we did the home studio, our partner in rhyme improv sessions where we did character voices, rapping and freestyling to different beats that you made back in the day, and that was like 15 years ago.
Yes, yeah, I was holding back, but yeah, it's true. We're talking early to mid 2000s.
In the aughts, in the double O's.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and do you remember where we first met? Do you remember?
Yeah, we met at a night that was recognized in Toronto as one of the most popular and accessible open mic nights for hip-hop artists.
Yes.
Called In Divine Style, upstairs of the Gypsy Co-op on Queen Street West, just east of Bellwood and Queen West, and a space called The Hooch.
The Hooch.
And Lexus was at the door, you remember her, and we had Mindbender hosting it, Addie, and we had on the decks, more or less, also hosting, and DJ Danimal, and it was a great tribe of people that connected and worked with one another, and that's where we met.
It was a really special time because you'd go there, especially I think for people like I wasn't from the GTA, so I came from Barrie. So when I came down, it's like, where do you go? Like, how do you make yourself known? And Mindbender, who was the host of the night, and then his format for the night was to have people sign up for the open mic. So you would write your name down, you'd wait your turn, and sometimes it would be these like long
There was a long list, and it would have been a nice idea to have it at a Thursday night where we'd sign up and get on the mic at midnight. Usually we'd start getting on the mic at like 1:45.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later I realized why they did that, because we would have been rapping all night long.
Right.
They had to cut us off at some point.
That's true. But whether we were on the mic or not, what I loved about that night is we would be rapping anyways on the dance floor in front of the speakers. You had made so many connections with people. You would have your best rapping moment hours before you ever got on the mic, because by the time you got on the mic, it's 1:00. You've been drinking since like 9.
And smoking weed.
So you're like toast, and you get on like, you're like, I was amazing at 10 and 11. I just freestyled my butt off. And like you get on the mic and you're like, or
the beat wouldn't be the beat you wanted. You'd say,
oh yeah,
well, the beats were better before.
Yeah. It'd be like some guy would have like the killer gangstar beat on their rhyme, and then you get up and grab the mic and thinking you have the same beat, and then suddenly more or less would have to switch it up to another one.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, wait, I'm not feeling this one. So anyways, but that's how we met. And I remember I had the dictaphone back then, and we would rap on the dictaphones before we recorded on our phones. And so we were friends in that way.
We did a lot of tapes. We did a lot of sessions together, and I think it was important for me in those early years to have somebody to go back and forth, because I have a background in improv, and I always loved having that comedy element to rapping. It kept it really fun.
I bet you got a job that makes you sweat. Bogged down by the shit you take and get from your managers and the mammoth sirs, and you haven't had a break yet. what? Better than a Kit Kat, better than a Kit Kat, the wacky snack. Here's all that work tension. Did I mention fuck nuts a brownie? Celebrity sponsored by Robert Downey.
As opposed to that other element that I think a lot of movies and television shows depict, which is a valid element, but the idea of battle rapping or battle rhyming somebody is to put them down. And I was raised with a lot of sitcoms with put down humor, and it didn't feel like a uplifting vibe for me to have to make somebody feel a less than.
Yeah,
you know?
I was so on the same, and then battling was just sort of starting to become like the thing to do, and like it was always like dissing in your rhymes was like still prevalent, and like writing from the persona of like, I am the rapper that is better than you rapper, so you rapper sucks because I'm the best. That was still like getting into even the stuff I was writing. It was hard to escape, but the actual battling where you stood on stage and tried to put someone else down and call them out, like I think I wasn't really ever feeling that, and I don't know.
Well, we felt the need to create a team of people where we would amalgamate with More or Less and Sunny D and Rick Shaw and other kids to have our circle of friends rap with one another, which
That's
is
right.
more of a cipher.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever freestyled was in a cipher. I was 19 years old, and I went to New York City for the first time, and I stayed at a hostel, and I researched all the places that I wanted to hit. And then this kid came up to me and goes, you know what, you should go to Cafe Tabac if you like old school hip hop. And I said, yeah. And I remember distinctively in that back room, they were smoking hijiki and rapping into a mic, like a little tape recorder, Panasonic tape recorder. And when they passed it to me, it just flowed out of me. I knew exactly what to do.
Yeah.
I had always loved that concept of like being in New York, New Eurekan Poets Cafe, Izzy Bar, those like small spaces where people were just being either be poet-ish or spoken word-ish, and it had no forceful kind of agenda. It was this neat flow where you could work off other people's ideas. And that's what we did. When you freestyle, you're channeling and working off someone's ideas. You're supporting themes, and you're working in different rhythmic contexts. And then, of course, that's fuel for the fire, because I gained so much confidence doing it and being with strangers on the street. It was like a drug. I couldn't stop doing it. I came back to Toronto, and before we had In Divine Style, there was a open mic night at one of the first hip hop joints in Toronto called the Beat Junkie on Richmond. And I recall that there was no females allowed on the mic. They had this policy where it was men only. And me and Sunny D tried to get on, and we would sit in her basement and practice and rap with each other and try to force our way on that mic. And, I had to actually create a lot of safe spaces. Safe is a weird word, parentheses safe. Let's just quote that for a minute, only because I really loved freestyling so much. I always wanted to, like a person picks up a guitar and practices, I wanted to find places where I could practice it, but I would do it over beats. So I would do it in nightclubs a lot of times because I loved break beats and jungle. I would do it at raves and stuff. And I was working at in Mississauga as a stripper at a place called The Locomotion at Dixie and Eglinton. And I remember feeling like this is a great place to practice freestyle raps. And there was two change rooms. There's a quote unquote white girl change room.
Okay.
Because it still later on, even in the aughts, in the O's, there was segregation. There was one change room for the black girls. And I remember when I went back to stripping years later, same thing. But they had a black girl change room, and I remember going in there after having a few and freestyling for these hardened Mississauga have-to single moms with, maybe at that point, I don't remember because that wasn't on my radar, pimps or no pimps, but just the pressure to get on the floor and to be the girl and breadwinner. These were really hardened girls, and that's the audience I wanted. I actually felt more accomplished if my audience was like that and they laughed or were amused. And if they sat back and went, all right, that was a good flow, then I knew I was onto something. But if I wasn't on point, I'd just scurry out of that change room as fast as my heels could take me.
Right.
That's when you knew you got to get the hell out.
Yeah, I remember, I definitely remember, being in positions where people were not given an inch for, my ability, no matter if I had it or not. I definitely, got a lot of cut eye. I got a lot of, people cutting me off or literally pulling a microphone out of my hand, while I'm rapping, yoink, gone from your hand. So I definitely remember like a lot of prejudice against me for even trying to rap, for even being there, and that's a guy. I can imagine for a girl, like, you know, like it'd be. You know,
I understand that,
you know,
and I'm
for
sure you could relate to another thing people love doing, especially if you're in the flow and getting people's attention. It's similar to what a heckler does when a comedian's on stage. They will try to rap as well.
Yeah.
Which is nice if you're in the playground and you're 5 years old.
Sure.
But when you've been freestyling for, let's just say 5 years, you've been writing some rhymes and doing pretty good. You got a good flow going. So even to have somebody try to be like coming up and thinking they've got it.
Yeah.
They look foolish.
Yeah.
Imagine now, I've been doing it 20 years. You've been doing it maybe longer than me. At 20 years, even sometimes when I'll be doing it, I'll still get some guy who'll think he can just flow out of his ass, which is fine.
Sure.
There's no reason for you not to play,
No,
but
sure.
there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know?
And I think that what was happening for me in the early 2000s and stuff was I was networking with other MCs and other people who were rapping, and I was kind of like getting a feel for like, okay, this is what people are doing, but this is who I am, and this is what I want to be doing, but no one wants to hear me if I'm not a little bit like this or a little bit like that. And so I struggled a lot with my own identity as an artist, which I think was, because I came from a very preachy background. So much of what I wrote was this like message heavy, preachy stuff. And like, one of my friends had said to me, like, I love you, buddy, but when I listen to music, that's not all I want to hear. Like, I want to hear the party raps and I want to hear the fun stuff. And you always bring the heavy. And I was like, okay. So then I tried to go like a little bit less on the heavy and more on the fun. And then you get into like being whack, sounding cheesy.
It's interesting you say that, because when I met you, we had our first conversation. You said that you used to play guitar and you did religious songs.
Oh yeah. Well, I rapped religious. I rapped Christian raps when I first started out. That was how I started.
Which is a whole business now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was then too. I mean, it was a huge business even then. I mean, Christian music is a huge business because, first of all, it's the message, right? It's the missionary side of it.
Right.
It's the message of music. But then you just think about it. You have this, like, in every town, you have a sold out show because, like, every church will go to the Christian rock show. You know what I mean? So it's just like you have this target audience that exists in like all different
That's
towns.
really interesting when you say the message, because an artist, when they're on a mic or and I have to speak only for the kind of artist I am, which is a freestyle rapper. And I do write written, but the passion I have for freestyle comes from the need to share a message or to channel a message or to be aware and sensitive to the group of people and then tailor that message. Because I did stand-up comedy for many years, and I remember one night hanging out with the comedians, all of them of which I remember are, if not, famous. Like I used to hang out with Deborah DiGiovanni, and she's now a famous comedian because these kids did, and same with another guy, Aaron Berg, because they would practice and they would have every night an open mic and they'd go check that joke works and that joke didn't.
Yeah, you work the material.
So I remember sitting around with them and one time after the show and then talking to somebody and then just breaking out into a rap because I explained how on Thursday night was my rap night. I might do stand-up on these nights and strip on this night, but Thursday night's my open mic rap night. Right. And when I started busting out a freestyle, they were like, that's what you're good at. That's who you are. That's incredible. They go, I've never heard somebody pick up on what we're doing and throw it in and make it entertaining. Right. Not just like cat sat on the mat kind of rap, but utilize that and have it as a function. Yeah.
Well, I think I don't know. I think that's the thing about art is like when you start on your journey and you explore it, you're going to figure it out your own way, and other people's ways are going to work or not work for you. But I think there are the two things. There's a free-flowing form where you don't have much control over it because it's just going to become what it's going to become. But then there's the honed down, like, okay, I know this works, this doesn't work. It may have started off with a creative just burst where you just like do it off the top. But if you have the ability to go back on it, because if you think about it, writing is a freestyle. It's just been put into written words. And then because it's on the paper, you can go back and go like, okay, that's not
I remember how you even wrote your rhymes. It was similar to how I learned to write rhymes. You would write them in capital letters in a paragraph on a notebook. And you'd make sure that they would fit in the sequence of the beat, because to us, a beat is like when a cook uses a knife or a specific pan. It's how you are forming a support for the idea.
That's right.
Beats are so... I mean, like, I'm in love with beats. I can actually say that I went to different nightclubs just to rap high, of course, or drunk on the dance floor to beats that I would not have access to.
Yeah. And I in my UK hip hop podcast that I did, I talk about writing rhymes over top of songs. Like, rappers are rapping on them, the beats on them, but I'm just so inspired by that flow and just the whole feel of the song, and I didn't know how to get that instrumental, so I'd be like, forget it, I'll just write right over it.
I love that. Yeah. I think that more people should just be okay with that. You have
it's
to.
Hard,
you have to.
Yeah, it's
be
hard.
Okay with it. You know.
You spent some time in New York, am I right?
Yes, I spent a lot of time in New York.
Yeah. So what kind of
I was spoiled.
How'd you pass your time in New York? What brought you there? What kept you there? What sent you home?
I'll make it brief.
Okay.
I always wanted to live in New York. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to live in New York, and I'm not even putting an occupation with it. I just love the city, and I went by myself every year. And the reason why I could afford to go there every year by myself, sometimes twice a year, was because I had stripping money. And even though I went to 3 theater schools, I would always go back to New York. And I made friends with someone who was very inspiring, David Manilow. And he christened me. He gave me my name when I cut in line in front of this guy at Jackie 60s, this black gay guy. And this black gay guy said, "Excuse me, who do you think you are, line cutter, Miss Butter?" And Dave turned around and went, "That's you.
That's awesome.
That's who you are."
I never knew that.
And he always used to say, "Look, you got to hit this open mic night. Next time you come, you got to do this night." And I used to buy all my CDs. The Runaways was this great instrumental group. There was Open Mind Record Shop. I used to hit the small little record shops and buy music and meet people, and I was always inspired by the 4 elements of hip-hop. So when I would travel back to New York, I'd circle and research, because this was before the internet.
Right, yeah.
This is way before the internet.
Yeah, sure.
And I love drag queens and performers. I was really inspired with the gay community and what they were bringing to the table, because it was freedom. It was just the freedom. I loved, aside from that, seeing people in New York, I love that element of being intimidated. I never got that in Toronto. I was a Toronto kid. I started going to punk shows at an early age. I went to nightclubs I spent my 17th birthday at Catch 22.
Wow.
No 17-year-old should be in a nightclub. I grew up in nightclubs and raves.
Wow.
So I had...
That says a lot.
Yeah, I had a part of me that needed, just like being in a black girl's change room in a really divey, dirty Mississauga strip club, I needed to be with real underground. And despite my appearance, I always had to have that element of music, rhythm, art, something that was just connecting to people other than, yo, you want to get a beer?
Yeah.
So it was inspirational also, San Francisco. See, I had in my early years a real love affair with the States. I would live in Toronto, go to school. I went to Randolph in Toronto for dance and acting and singing, and then I went to U of T in Toronto. But I had a love affair with a confidence that came from going to San Francisco. And I mean, being with people who were DJs that didn't have this kind of holier than thou attitude that a lot of Toronto DJs have, or the kids in Toronto. An audience there was much more receptive and supportive. And I'd meet blues singers and poets, people that weren't afraid to introduce themselves as a poet. It wasn't this odd concept.
Yeah.
So either they were ahead of the game, or they had grown up and been fed with Ginsberg and all these amazing people that, we forget. We have really great artists here in different areas. You don't even know the amount of plays that I've seen on a Pay What You Can Sunday and been floored by playwrights.
Right.
But there wasn't that kind of person to look up to for what I was kind of into, other than like the Beastie Boys.
Sure. Yeah.
Or scratching,
really, like,
kids that scratched.
Carving our own niche, really. I mean, I was lucky enough to be with like a couple of DJs who were like, really into the craft and really into being cut chemists, or like, however you want to put it, like Chris and Charles were brothers,
you had a good family.
So I had
of
a couple
kids,
of guys who were like pretty diehards. And on the rap scene as well. I was lucky to have a few diehard guys, but like honestly, at the same time though, I definitely felt like not a lot of people were on the same wavelength of like what they wanted to say to the world as I was. So, anyways, but like, so when did you decide to, or when was your first rap? Like, what was your first written rap, or were you always, or were you like off the top, from the beginning, or?
That's actually an amazing question. Being a freestyler allowed me to always write raps on the spot. So if I was at a party or gathering, I could go in a room, write a couple ideas down, come out, and because my background since I was 11 years old was in drama and improvisation, meaning make up the character, come into the scene, establish who you are and what the why do you need to be there, the element of like the motivation. So I always needed to feed an audience with a lot of great options and a lot of things to just keep me going and do it on the spot.
Yeah.
But the first few written I did, and I still have them, were inspired by my girlfriends. They were birthday raps.
Oh, cool.
And I would write to like my friend June, my friend Kathy, my friend Julia, my friend Jordana, one of the waitresses I worked at the strip club. I would write a birthday rap. And I could sit and craft it out in such a specific manner because I knew the person so well that it was a joy to write these raps.
Right.
Those were the written raps that I did. And they were like sometimes 7 to, and verse, chorus, bridge, set down by Nirvana. Like I would write in that format, like verse, chorus, verse, chorus,
Yeah.
So they'd gather around and I'd sometimes get a mic at wherever I was, or sometimes I wouldn't have a beat, or I would. Okay. You know how that is. So I probably did rap on people's tracks where they were rapping and not care.
Yeah,
because you needed
you did
beats.
Whatever. Yeah,
you did. Yeah,
someone had to play a band.
Someone had a guitar or anything,
whatever.
or even
give me
just
any rhythms.
Any
snap
rhythm.
Your fingers, everybody. Just snap your fingers, and I'm going to rap for you now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember all that. Yeah, I remember. I would still do that, to be honest. Just like, put me on, and I'll do it.
Exactly.
So you started out. You were writing for like friends for their birthdays and stuff. Yeah. And one thing I'll say is I was listening to your SoundCloud again today, and there was one song we were talking about, boys out for a party and having a party night. I can't remember what it's called.
Radical Fanatical Circuit Boys.
That's right. Radical Fanatical Circuit Boys, which is awesome.
Hey boy. Hey girls. Hey girls.
Don't hate them cause they're beautiful, and don't judge them when they're high. Yo, G, I see you need to pop another ear, get your busted ass out of fly. And don't hate them cause they're beautiful, and don't judge the way they jive. Time to get aerobic, lose a homophobic, and drive me straight to 5. And don't hate them cause they're beautiful, and don't judge them cause they're cute. Damn, you mean, go to Vaseline, I'll get my squeeze that grapefruit. And don't hate them
to the game.
And I want to say, you guys got to check out Miss Butter T.O. on SoundCloud. A lot of great songs there. I managed to find,
they're very old, young man. They're quite old.
The important thing is, I think it's good to
they don't even represent what's up now.
Find the SoundCloud, because what will represent right now is probably going to come soon. So once you tap into at least where to find Miss Butter, then you can find more of her. But what I was going to say about that was, I noticed in that song, there was a lot of reference to the people that you know. There was description of people that you know, inside jokes probably that only the people who knew you would know, and that kind of writing with that encryptic sort of wordplay where you kind of get an inkling of what it might be about, but if you're not on that inside sort of joke or whatever it is, you don't actually understand what it is. But as I talk to you, or as you think about it or listen to the song, you kind of are like, oh wow, well if I was that person that's just mentioned, I probably know exactly what she meant about that. So what I want to say is, what I've noticed is, with your writing, it's almost like sociological investigation.
Yeah, I love it. Margaret Mead. Yeah, that's why I love sociology.
Yeah, right.
Sociological. Good. High five to that.
From a lot of your writing, right?
Yeah.
But there's also a real humor to it, right? No, you say you did some comedy work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where do you think your sense of humor comes from?
That's such a cool question. I had to have a sense of humor always, because I grew up in a family that revered and admired comedians. Comedy was God in my house.
I see.
If there was a comedian on, we'd all have to go in front of the TV. My parents pulled me out of school in grade 1 to watch Annie. They would make me watch Saturday. Well, not make me, like, you better go watch this, but Saturday Night Live. We had to watch that. I was in grade 2. I had a very advanced sense of humor as well. I don't want to say that I'm the only one in my, I mean, like, I'm Gen Xer. I'm 40 now, but
Sure.
we had Mad Magazine, and we had a lot of great humor that I was so great. Like, come on. We had Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
even Andrew Dice Clay, as dirty as he was, we had a very sophisticated, where I grew up in suburbia in Thornhill. I grew up in an area where there was Jews with money and Jews without money. And you bet if culturally you'd survived the Holocaust, you had something we had to laugh at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff was humor and humor based.
Right.
And a lot of songs and things I grew up with in films. I really loved Robin Williams. I loved the crafting of stand-up. It was like just a beautiful music.
Yeah.
It was like Rodney Dangerfield, this shtick, and Lenny Bruce, and being young and knowing how Billy Crystal would deliver something. It was music.
And it's a very written improv hybrid as well. Just like what you do a lot of. Like, you have your written stuff, but it is subject to change on the fly whenever.
Sure.
And then you also have your freestyle stuff, which is also subject to slide into something.
Well, you've
written.
seen it. You've seen it.
I've seen it, and this is what I'm talking about, is my experience of you as an artist. So when it comes to comedians, and some of the, like you mentioned Eddie Murphy, you mentioned Robin Williams.
Yeah,
so we're talking about comedians who can slide into the absurd and also slide into a bit of the crass side of things. Now, was there any censoring in your home for what you could or couldn't listen to at certain ages? Was there like would you consider yourself at a pretty young age when you were allowed to listen to Eddie Murphy, or was it
I could
kind of
listen to
thing?
it at any time.
Yeah.
My parents never told me not to swear.
Is Miss Butter. I'm the Jew cutie with a big black booty. What's a pro? What's a pro? What's a pro? What's appropriate? What's a pro? What's a pro? What's a pro? What's a pro? What's appropriate? What's a pro? What's a pro? What's a pro? Yo, I forget. My name's on the list, cause this line cutter doesn't get pissed or distance. Stutter won't cover your dick with the fluffer nutter. I miss Butter. Feels good. Miss this? Did you miss this? I miss Butter. Miss this? Don't miss this.
I never, but even my boobies, my boobie and I would tell dirty jokes.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel comfortable writing crass, which is interesting because I flinch when I hear, bitch, holla, holla, dollar. Like, I can't handle that. To me, it's like bad ice cream.
Right. Yeah.
It's not enjoyable musically.
So sorry if I'm cutting you off.
No.
But do you worry about, because like, I'll be honest, and to the people listening, as you go into Miss Butter's material, it's not something to listen to with the kids always, right?
No.
There's definitely things that there are curse words, there are concepts, there is imagery that is of more adult nature. So what I wanted to ask you was, do you ever lose sleep over like being offensive or worrying that you're offensive?
I don't want to offend anybody. I find loss of innocence is something that is, I didn't have this loss of innocence is when kids are exposed to too much shit too fast. Like the fact that my father didn't hide his Penthouse magazines that well wasn't his problem. We were nosy kids.
Right.
I mean, I just happened upon it. Did it later in life affect me and my choices? I don't know. I don't know if a lot of things like abuse, how it would affect you later, but I don't find it cool to swear around kids or be crass around them. I believe in preserving innocence to the as long as you can, and be that much more aware of kids. I think it'd be a great challenge for me if I wanted to write a whole bunch of raps that didn't have swear words. But how are you supposed to do, for example, like one of the raps I remember thinking I could do these for these guys. I wrote one called My First Year Stripping, and I had a group of girls around me, and then one of their daughters came in the room, and they all turned to me and they're like, no, like, you got to stop it right now. Like, even when my friend was editing my book, Jewish Strippers on Heroin, she's like, you can't, like, my kids can't hear that. And I understand that.
Yeah, sure.
Because some of the lyrics.
Yeah, and I guess it's for, like, with kids, I totally get it. And I ultimately, it's up to the parents to, like, but I think to guide, like, to make sure they don't or do hear certain things. But what I think maybe more what I was curious about was, do you ever feel concerned about, the average listener, the adult listener, not seeing the message through, like, because they're like maybe like, whoa, she's talking about a stripping, or she's talking about.
I think it's
like,
good.
something.
I think you have to demystify. Look at what year we're in. We're in the year 2017. By the time we hit 3017, which is 100 years from now, there will be no gender. It'll be a miscreant. It'll be something so socially constructed and strange. Because what you need to do is always unwrap, unfold what part makes you uncomfortable. I never saw myself as the embodiment of a stripper. It was a job like being a waitress.
Absolutely, yeah.
But another cool thing is, look at all these worlds that I was able to be a part of, and all these things that I'm bringing to the table.
Wanna get low. Joey was a friend of mine, said it was great. We got a card to cut the line, didn't even debate. It wasn't hard to see the sign, I just sealed my fate. Already fan of wine and staying up late. Chain smoked and hoped he would listen to me as I babbled-ish incoherently. I'm too smart to strip. Yo, don't you agree? It sucks to be broke and abused since 3. Well, my dad got mad, had it out on me. I should feel good, but when's that gonna be?
And all the people I did cocaine with. Do I want to write different ways about it? Yeah. I think that I haven't even begun to be honest about, like, when I wrote my first album, like 13 years ago, I had to be sober to write it. I was 3 months sober to write that album.
Excellent.
I wouldn't write an album now or write something unless I was sober, because it's going to be weird. Like, I did want to discuss, just to switch it up, with that wedding track. Like, when I thought about writing a track for my friend's wedding, I did it from my heart, and I really wanted to. But something happened later on in my artistic career where every time I thought about writing something, I'd start drinking heavily.
Wow. Okay.
Like, really heavily, and drugging really heavily. And
when you started thinking about writing something.
Yeah.
Right.
And even like sitting down to do it, because the whole idea of recovery is living one day at a time.
Yeah.
Where you don't plan for, like, planning makes me crazy.
Right.
I couldn't even plan next weekend right now if I wanted to. It would make me nuts, because I don't know how many weeks or years of sobriety I'll need to start planning, but I'm only able, and that's why I've been a freestyler for 20 years. I'm only able to deal with what is right now in the moment, because anything else will just make me a cuckoo bird.
Yeah. But I honestly, I believe that's what we're supposed to be moving towards anyways, is being in the now and living in the now. And that's what I've always loved about freestyle as well. Yeah. Is when I'm floundering at freestyle, it's because I'm too far in the future of, like, what is this going to sound like? Or I'm too far in the past going, oh, I really wanted to say this. When I'm really rocking freestyle is when there's almost no time passing between what my mind is firing off and what my mouth is saying. And I get into this zone where it's just all flying out. And that, honestly, I believe, and there's a lot of people working towards this in their meditation and group meditations, is finding how to exist in the moment. And by doing so, in order to do so, is to only talk about what's happening right now and not reference the past or the future, but just say, sitting here with you talking is really awesome because I can feel the energy and the connection and everything. And the more you do that, the more you kind of stay in the moment. And that's why I think, freestyle is also a very attractive thing to people who find peace in that. You find peace in letting go of the past and the future, right? So I think it's super awesome. So all this is happening. You're writing raps, you're performing. What does your mom think about all this? You're close with your mom. You've always been close.
She's always loved it.
She's always loved you and
always
supported you.
Always been proud of it. Always.
So when I knew you, I mean, when we first met, we were both really trying to break into the hip hop scene, the hetero male, like heavy. So, and then when we reconnect, I find that you are heavily entrenched in the gay community. Yeah. And you have a following.
They gave me all my shows for years.
So how did this happen and how did this come about?
They support, even when I did stand-up for gay people, they always supported me in such a loving, wonderful, cool way. Not to say that that's how an audience should be.
Yeah, and now you identify as straight.
I identify, straight. I'm an alliance. I'm a gay alliance. I look at myself as a buttersexual.
Okay.
Buttersexual. Doesn't have to, it's not like bisexual.
Right.
It's buttersexual.
Okay.
I love love.
Okay.
I do. I love love.
So there was some identifying you in that community, as not necessarily being heterosexual, but it was more than that. It was more just, this is where you found.
They have a window, and your window in the gay community, it's maybe window's the wrong word. Alliance. My alliance is that I look up to them so much. It's like they're Oprah to me. I like, you know, when you stop and you listen, like, and you're in a forest and you're all alone and the sun is setting and it's peaceful and it's beautiful. I feel the same way around a gay person. I am absolutely in my Mecca.
Right.
I am inspired. I want to dance. I want to sing. I want to listen. I want to learn. I'm so inspired that it just allows my work. And sometimes I'll even say vibrationally, when you're around somebody who does energy work or connecting or an intelligent person that wants the best for you, your vibration is going to resonate with that.
Right.
And I found that in that community, my art, everything excelled. I wrote better. I didn't want to kill myself as much. I was doing so many different nights and performing. I had my own residency.
Right.
Which was cool. I got to perform every Friday night with costumes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
With the DJs that said, okay, what are we playing tonight? Were you dancing to it? I always wanted to be like Courtney Love and Madonna and have fun and make people laugh or come on a journey. And they are supportive of that.
Yeah.
They're wonderful, amazing, supportive people.
So and so that being the yin to the yang, so you come out of a scene, a hip hop scene,
that pushed
as
me
an
away,
artist,
get off the stage.
which is competitive, which is negative and judgmental, no open ears, all closed ears.
Because nobody wants to reflect and grow up at that time.
That's
Let's just look at it.
So
that
as
time
an artist,
in
at that time, I mean,
I can't speak for now, kids. This was in the like.
This is in the 2000s up to 2000.
We're Gen Xers here. This is back in the day.
But no, I can totally see that. Like, and then you find this community that's almost all forms of expression are accepted and welcomed.
Yeah, they were in my school. They were in my apartment.
Because and we're not just talking, and I think it's important to maybe put a point to this. It's not necessarily it's the gay community in Toronto is a special thing. It's and I think maybe in reflection when you're speaking about your interactions, it's like there is a culture and a community that's very supportive and loving in even a certain geographical area of Toronto, but also in the venues and the places within that area. Where you don't have to be of any orientation to walk in and feel welcome. I worked on Church Street at a bar called Spirits for many like 3-4 years, 5 years.
Yes, you did.
And I went to so many places, and I lived in that area.
Yeah.
And I always felt completely at peace, comfortable, enjoying myself. Like, sure, you have the same drama on the street in the middle of the night as anywhere else, but the overall artistic and expressive sort of welcoming that was there, I always loved that. And it's been really great to follow you in retrospect, because it's like we were out of touch for a while, and then we got in touch, and then I started to investigate where you were at,
when I was at
and
York,
just to see, and then to see all of this history of you really, getting involved with that community, and I think it's really great. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your energy work.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
So here we have, your songs. A few of them are depicting a life that you were happy to leave behind, and that you've learned a lot from, and you can shed light on. And I think, as you were sort of touching on, it's so valuable and valid and relevant to anybody else who knows that world. And you even say that in your song. To anybody who knows this world, you would know this. To anybody who doesn't know this world, you have no idea about this. And I think that separation, that idea for the listener, you're going to draw in the people who really need to relate, and then you're also going to inform the people who are totally rejecting people who need to be related to. And I think that's an amazing bridge to have. So I don't think it's that far off that you've moved into energy work now, that you're a person who assesses people, who gives positive energy, who tries to take in the good and the bad and create something beautiful out of it. And so what I wanted to ask you was, I know your mother's involved in energy work.
Yeah.
So has this been a thread underneath all of this through a long time, or has this been something that has kind of spiked up and grabbed hold of you in more recent years?
Oh, that's such a great question. My mom's practice really started taking off when I was in my 30s, so about 10 years ago. And I was still doing a lot of showing up at club nights and grabbing a mic or getting myself on stage with bands and doing raps in the middle. And my raps would be great like the freestyles I was doing with live bands when I moved to suburbia were really, really on point and fun because it was getting a crowd going. And they were a good challenge for me to be with live bands. I did perform for a good 5-6 years, just live bands. And I was getting a lot of treatments from my mom and doing a lot of kirtan, a lot of chanting. And I wasn't killing myself with drugs as much. I wasn't doing over drinking and self-destructive behavior. So my rhymes got better. I got better.
Right.
The energy I was giving off got better. And it was fun.
Yeah.
But what happens when you do treatments, you're being given a homeopathic remedy and you're doing work that is offering your body the mirrored reflection so it can come up, and you're cultivating enough light so that you can shine enough light on it and be safe with it, as opposed to having the lower brain take over, the reptilian brain, and then do a lot of histamine and defense. And I never gave my body that chance to cultivate enough light and higher energy so that I was always overtaken by the lower brain. It was almost like the day when it was too much to take, I would end up buying drugs or doing drugs. So the day where it was, I craved alcohol so much I had to drink. Right. And I don't want to call my mom a spiritual enabler because it's something I've thought of before, because I think of a lot of crazy ass concepts. But in a way, I was doing a lot of polluting, and then she would be drawing it out, and I'd have no consequence for the partying.
Right.
And that's a sad fact, because as much as I want to say, yeah, I got clean and devoted myself to being my mom's apprentice, I'd be lying, because I mean, even 2 years ago, I was clean for a long time, 5-6 months, and doing a lot of energy work and like flourishing. And then I just, boom, got sick all over again because I had to pay my bills, and I ended up being a waitress at a dive bar.
And life kind of happens, right? And
life does happen, but still, you can make better choices. I'm the queen of bad choices, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I have injuries to show for it.
Sure.
I have tumors. My mom shrank, I don't know how many tumors in me, in my brain, and cancer.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And she still works with me with because I've given myself so much pollutants. Yeah. So much garbage. So that energy work, like, I'll never forget when, 10 years, when I must have been 29 or 28, my mom took me my first kirtan, and I started chanting with her. I remember thinking, oh, I'll never do drugs again. And as much as I love doing it, it wasn't enough to sustain me.
Yeah. Yeah. So your road as an artist, as it sort of takes these highs and lows through addiction, right? Like, it's amazing how the art reflects not always in what you write, but in your ability to put stuff out, your ability to complete things, your ability to feel in the zone, like your ability to just finish projects or whatever it is. Like, I know that addiction can, for me, definitely can hold that stuff at bay. But I guess what I'm curious about is do you see at some point your output musically starting to mirror a little bit the recovery, and starting to mirror a little bit, not that it hasn't already, but mirror more of the energy work? Do you see any way in which you create musically being a part of what you're doing energetically with healing work and with energy work?
I think when I listen to your stuff, when I listen to what you write, I listen and I really enjoy it. I really enjoy listening to what you create, and I love the new stuff you've written.
Thanks.
And I think that's where my energy is. It's just being a great audience member and a great listener. I just love when you write something or you play guitar, or I play back, like after we freestyled or recorded something, and I listen to what you do, and I'm like, man, that's fucking inspirational. That's where I'm at. Yeah. Because I've yet to get back into a really clear space. I'm a great listener. At this point, I'm a great listener.
I get it as well. And,
great audience member.
I think a big thing for me is changing my target audience, because for most
tell me about that.
Just for most, like in my 20s, my hip hop audience, the people I was writing for were hip hop heads, like guys who are into hip hop. So I wrote everything in this context of like, love me, appreciate me, get down with what I'm doing. Hard rock guy, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's not, but it wasn't me. So it was this contrived kind of character I was trying to make.
Yeah.
And that's, I have all these pictures in my studio of people I love and care about, and that love and care about me. Yeah. that's who I try to write for now, as if I was trying to tell them what I need to say, and that helps keep me on track, is to picture a target
What do
audience.
they need to know now?
like-minded
If you're going to
people.
write 2 songs, let's just hear what you're working on recently. I'm curious.
This is not you, this is your interview. I'm interviewing you. I will, and we can flip the script. We can just shut this off and turn it around.
Tell me.
But no, and I guess just as lyricists who are moving ahead, I think it's sometimes hard to get out of the persona that you put yourself in a particular writing style, right? Like you write raps, you write it from a particular persona. It's a character
That's
or
right.
something.
Slim Shady.
Yeah, like whatever. Yeah, right.
Slim Shady.
But I hear it on your SoundCloud. I hear that sort of like a little bit
like drag.
snarky.
It's an alter ego.
There you go.
It's a
right?
lovely
Yeah, it's
alter
an
ego from
yeah.
which it needs a voice.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very effective and entertaining and rapid fire.
Or
with
can
the
trigger
lyrics
you
and
to do
stuff.
a bag of cocaine.
Good.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
Get out of
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
well, it's been at least a half hour. It's probably been
Thank you.
45 minutes. But I just
Thank you.
the listeners will get samplings of your music, probably beginning and end, and
You can find my freestyles also on YouTube. Some of them is Butter
excellent.
Toronto or
We
on the
will-
readingsalon.ca.
We will put all those links up on
We
the,
will.
on
Thank
the
you.
podcast.
Thank you.
And yeah, just love and respect to you as an artist and a
I got
friend.
great love for you. I got mad respect, Lefspek.
I'm gonna tell you guys right now, this is probably the most subdued and calm conversation me and Amy have had in a long, long time. We're usually up to crazy freestyles and silly
different
talks and
accents,
voices,
and
but
yeah.
it's been really
It's
nice
been
having a
nice.
heart
It's
to
been
heart
really
with you
cool,
for sure.
yeah.
And I guess we'll sign off here and we'll get some air out on the balcony
Yeah,
because it's
it's
freaking hot in here, man.
Hot.
I took the AC out. I shouldn't have. Anyways, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you later.
No one paved my way, I had to do it all alone. 7-Eleven, photocopy machine, and cell phone. No one paid my way, I rode a bike to work and back. My Walkman's busted on the last track. Hurt my soul, pushed me off to the side. They wouldn't let me spit no matter what I tried. Hurt my soul, promising me dope beats. The only way to get them is between the sheets. Welcome home, mother.